Hello everybody. So today's video is highly specialized. I am talking about Genmab. This video is especially brought to you by my Patreon because I know this is going to be just a few hundred views on this one, and so I'm very thankful for my Patreon members helping me out cover Genmab. I've seen next to no analysis on this stock, so let us get started. So Genmab, they specialize in antibodies. What is an antibody? Simply look at their logo. This is what an antibody looks like. We're going to get into a picture and looking at what antibodies are, how they work, and why they are so important, and maybe a new wave of healthcare. Specifically, Genmab focuses on antibody therapy for cancer patients, and these therapy, they have many of them approved, and they are approved for when chemotherapy has not worked once or twice depending on the drug that they sell, and they have a grand vision on how they want to use antibody to treat cancer. And of course, the way the legacy medical system works and the way insurance reimbursement works makes it so that, in my view, the reason why they are approved for when conventional methods don't work is because, you can't really shake the status quo by the front door. If you want to shake the status quo in cancer care, you have to go through the back door, i.e. through the patients where traditional methods, very bad methods if you ask me, very, very detrimental method like chemotherapy is an awful thing to have to go through, but unfortunately it's the established way to do it. And so these drugs are only prescribed by specialists like hematologists, oncologists. They're only prescribed once the round 2 or the round 1 with growth of tumors. Once those rounds have been exhausted and those conventional, less expensive options have been exhausted, then and only then do you introduce the brand new shiny therapy, which is antibody therapy. But I believe they have a compelling vision for how cancer could be treated in 2030 and beyond, and that's why I titled this video 2030 Vision and Beyond. So let's go. First of all, why am I interested in this stock? I am interested in this stock because it is cheap. There's a lot of very interesting pharma stocks out there. Lots. Love a lot of genetic stocks. But the reason why I don't cover them is because I don't have that margin of safety. I don't have that cheapness in it. Genmab is very, very inexpensive. So is Transmedics, right? I covered Transmedics the other day. So is Lantheus. And what's funny is, why are they so expensive? Well, I guess they're highly innovative companies and the market is not really paying too much attention. The rates are still high. So the market is really not paying too much attention to the innovation just yet. But I do. So last time I covered Lantheus, which is radiotherapy, and they are the leading in radiopharmaceuticals. Radiotherapy is something different. Sorry about that. In radiopharmaceuticals, what they do is they use isotopes to treat patients. That's one new wave of medicine. Then we have Transmedics with their organ care system. It's an FDA-approved machine that holds organs alive during transplants. It's the disruptor of dry ice. Love Transmedics, by the way. It's one of the stuff I should have been in my yesterday's video. In my video yesterday, I forgot to put it in there. It's one of the cheapest stocks that I cover out there compared to the growth, 84%. And then now we have a Genmab. So Genmab is an antibody leader. They specialize in antibody. Okay, let's go. So medicine, first of all, medicine and health. And this is, by the way, this is traditional medicine and health from a commercialization standpoint. This is commercialized through a traditional path with all of the drawbacks that has. Namely, insurance is probably going to want you to go through chemo first before they try their shiny new thing. Anyways, so you have medicine and health, and that's been a very high growth sector forever, really. It's been a high growth sector for a very long time. And why do I cover this sector? Why do I want to be in this sector? Well, if you look at the history of innovation, some of the most consequential innovations in humanity have come from the sector of medicine. This is not a joke, but I put hand washing in there, because hand washing was one of the biggest revolution stemmed in Europe. I think it was 400 years ago or something like that. Hand washing was one of the biggest revolutions and it's a simple thing, but this saved countless lives. Then you had penicillin. Penicillin was another major innovation that came from medicine that saved countless lives. And then you had inoculation, another method, right? The beginnings of biotech with inoculation. And that has saved countless life. This sector has been a high growth sector for centuries, and it will continue to be. And let me quote Peter Diamandis, what 80-year-old would not spend 95% of their wealth to live an extra 10 years healthfully, right? What older person wouldn't spend most of their wealth to expand their life healthfully, to see their grandchildren grow into adults, etc.? And the answer to that is most. And this is why I think this is a very promising sector, and I love to invest in that sector. And you could also get into the demographics and talk about the demographics. And in fact, there's an aging population, and thus the older you get, the more health needs you have. Anyways, historically, this is how I've described medicine. You have traditional pharma, the big older companies, and they sell things that look like molecules. So metformin is one of them. Statin is another form, right? That's a molecule. Oftentimes, traditional pharma that sell these molecules-based drug. For example, metformin, second or first most prescribed drug in America, depending on where you look. It's a synthetic version of this, which is goat's rue or French lilac. That was used in the Middle Age, and they started extracting the molecule and making the molecule in a synthetic way, and now metformin is one of the most prescribed drugs in the world. It's got many off-label applications too. Anyways, these are the traditional big pharma firms. And then we've had what? We've had biotech. So biotech, that was the big thing in the 80s. Biotech started a little earlier with things like inoculation, but really it started getting strong in the 80s. And if you look at the performance of stocks like Amgen, for example, you need no introduction to biotech. This has been one of the hottest sectors to invest in, highly performance. Typically, biotech, what you do is you use dead viral vectors to send in. That's one example of biotech. Dead viral vectors to send instructions to your body. So what they'll do is they'll multiply viruses, for example, in things like eggs. Actually, sometimes in eggs they'll just multiply viruses, and then they will electrocute them. The viruses die, and then you make a vaccine, put it in a saline solution. That's kind of how it works. But there's other ways to do it. Biotech also implies that you use bio to make drugs. So another big biotech innovation in the 80s is growing insulin inside bacteria, inside E. coli bacteria. And so today, yeast is also super popular. Eggs, like I said, is super popular. You use some bio compound to create some vectors that you need, some new drugs. It's a very large umbrella term. And then we have the modern version of it, which is even more hot than biotech these days. It's genetic engineering. And so genetic engineering, that's DNA sequencing, DNA writing. I talked about CRISPR therapeutics on this channel and their treatment for sickle cell disease, and the ex vivo, in vivo treatment where you actually modify the DNA. This is what I'm going to call the lion's shares of today, hot health tech. Hot health tech today, that's genetics, genomics. Lots of people love that right now. But lots of pre-revenue companies in this sector. So again, I don't cover those too much on the channel. Now, there's two other areas which I'm going to put as different from biotech, different from genetic engineering, different from traditional molecules medication, different for HIMS, which is a bet on the business model. One of them is radiopharmaceutical. Radiopharmaceutical is Lantheus. Lantheus does radiopharmaceutical, and you use radioactive isotopes to track and kill diseases, track them in CAT scans, etc. That's Lantheus, and they are the leader in there. And we see more, that's the way I'm going to frame Genmab to me in my portfolio, is antibodies. And antibodies is what Genmab specializes in, and it's yet again it's a whole different thing. And today that's what we're talking about. We're talking about antibodies with Genmab. So Genmab wants to become the leader in antibody therapies. They have this grand vision, their 2030 vision, and they are calling this vision the knock your socks off antibody medicines vision. So, I don't know. It's funny. What are antibodies? Antibodies are Y-shaped proteins produced by our immune system with a critical mission: identify and neutralize invaders like bacteria, viruses, and other areas of the body. They identify and neutralize. They are Y-shaped proteins that identify and neutralize. This is what antibodies are. Look at the logo of Genmab. The logo of Genmab that you have right here is an antibody. So this is a company that is focused. This is a company that knows what it stands for. They're not going to be getting into, traditional pharma or radiopharmaceuticals or whatever. This is a company that is focused. I like that. They're focused. They do just that. They do antibodies. They're pioneering technologies, as they say, create next-gen and therapeutic antibodies to treat cancer and other serious diseases. So that's what they do. Okay. Let me move on to antibodies, and as I've watched all of their videos, and I'm gonna call them, they're kind of an antibody store, or like they're the antibody manufacturer, or they're the Costco of antibodies, or the Walmart of antibodies. They specialize in all sorts of antibodies, and they have bispecific antibodies. So what they do is they do a target 1 and a target 2, and they'll mix two half antibodies together, and with that they can target things like tumors, like blood cancers and solid tumors. They can target that with traditional antibodies, and they also do fundamental research in antibodies and how antibodies work. And antibodies, again, I'm no microbiologist, but they seem to be a pretty darn interesting part of the immune system. And if you use antibodies to treat diseases, it seems to me like a very promising area. So I want to show you a few things that they have. So Genmab, right? So they have their DuoBody, which is a quote-unquote proven, so in science the term proven, you always got to be careful, but it's a proven technology platform for high-throughput bispecific antibody library generation and screening of a bispecific antibody format. That's a mouthful. But anyways, essentially they can create antibodies that are ideal at targeting certain trackers, markers that hang out on cells. And when they stick to those markers that hang out on cells, they can trigger things in cells, like the death of the cell. And that's what I'll get to in a second, because when you have a cancerous tumor, that means your cell is actively impacted by cancer. You want to kill the cell. And so with antibodies, you can activate the system that kills the cell. I'll get to that in a second. They have multiple forms so they have simple antibodies where they just have dual targeting molecules, and they create these antibodies. They still look like a Y. And then they have much more complex compounds of antibodies or structures of antibodies that they use to target diseases. One of them is the hex antibody, and this is where I think it gets very interesting. So a lot of their promising drugs has to do with these helix-shaped antibodies that they sell. And so one of them is for cervical cancer, from what I was saying. And so this is kind of, you can look at all of their videos and see how it works. It's an antibody X-hammer. And so what it does is 6 antibodies that may initiate complement-mediated killing, which is a form of killing via the C1q complex. So as far as this video goes, this is not a technical video. As far as this video goes, we're going to say they enhance, or they favor, or they increase the death of the cells by having these hex antibodies. They trick the cells into dying either through this complex, the C1q, which is one aspect. Easier to understand, I think, for at least me, who I'm a layman in this field, is the second example that they have, which where antibody hexammers trick their cells into killing themselves. And my doctor in-house calls it cell suicide. They trick the cells into committing suicide. And so what they do is they'll have the antibodies connect in specific ways on markers of the tumorous cell, the cell that has the tumor, right? The cancerous cell is being targeted by these antibody X-hammers, which Genmab designs and manufactures. And these X-hammers will make the cell believe that it's time to auto-kill itself. And that's called apoptosis. So it will send instructions to the cell through the specific antibody cluster that they created and they inject in the body. It sends instructions to the cell to kill itself. It's genius, if you ask me. It's absolutely, I think it's great. So anyways, this is pretty darn meaningful stuff, if you ask me. And when you look at the company, you will find their motto many places on the website. Genmab is committed to transforming how cancer is treated. And, talking about the biggest channels on YouTube are about multifamily rental and property. I'm kind of making a joke here. This is some deep stuff, much more meaningful than, single family rental in the Midwest, if that makes sense. Not that it's anything bad. Single family rental anywhere is fine, but it's like this is some consequential stuff. If an antibody therapy can target a cancerous part of the body and trick the cancerous cells into killing themselves, think about the consequences that has for humanity, for the market, for it being the whole world. It's and for growth, right? For growth. So and by the way, this is a feeling. People call me bullish often in the comment section. I'm bullish on a lot of things. Genetics, health, longevity, these are things that are extremely bullish, that I am extremely bullish on. Very, 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 very much bullish on. You'll have a hard time pitching me something like an insurance company or a bank. You'll have a really hard time. But pitching me something, as compelling as that and as essential as that, where it is true that's kind of the most important thing. It's more important than investing. It's more important than being rich. That's the most important thing. Like, I'm obviously going to be very bullish. I think this is very promising. I am just excited about this as I was about Lantheus and the isotopes and the various ways that we have of attacking these nasty cancers. So anyways, making a joke, but I'd much rather invest in that and put my money in that and even lose money with that and lose money with multi-family property or whatever. So if there's a way to lose money, I'd like to lose money like that. No investment advice, no financial advice. So love it. So this is their 2030 vision. This is what they're working on. How do they make money? Because at the end of the day, we care about that a lot, right? How do they make money? So, before that, I want to show you just an example. So this is one of their drugs that they present. This is just one example. This is their Rina S drug, which is for some sort of women's reproductive organ cancer. I can't remember which one. This is not my field. Ovarian cancer. This one is for ovarian cancer. Again, as always with this type of drug, it is when conventional methods have not worked, then insurance companies say, okay, this is good. You can use this because the conventional method has not worked. And so we tried the inexpensive way to treat the patient, so now we're going to try the modern drug, the modern way to treat this patient. This is my kind of way to look at it. They explain how you could kill a ovarian cancer cell with this Rina S antibody. So you have the Rina S antibody. The Rina S antibody sticks to the cancer cell. It releases information. The information interferes with the DNA replication processes, which leads to apoptosis, essentially cell suicide. And then the process is done, right? And so they say that if they expect the approval in 2027, this could be a blockbuster drug. I want to point out we've had a few antibody-based blockbuster drugs. The one that I can really think of is Humira. Do you remember Humira? Humira had states in, I think it was California and South Carolina, who sued AbbVie literally because they were sending billions of dollars a year in Humira because some of these drugs have a potential to be so revolutionary. So again, if you like you're facing right there an option that doesn't exist for cancer treatment, or at least that is not as mainstream as chemotherapy, that's another option. This This is meaningful stuff, in my view, for me, for my portfolio, as always. So let's go. How do they make money? How do they make money? They make money mostly via partnerships for now. So they have a lot of partnerships and they earn their royalties. And these are the usual suspects of pharma distribution. So Pfizer, AbbVie, Amgen, Novartis, right? I was talking about Amgen earlier. These are big companies, big distributors, so they have this commercialized partnership and they earn royalties. And of course, when you earn royalties, the big advantage is that you can stay a lean business. This is a lean business. I'll get to that in a second. And they have and look at the scale, right? 5.5 billion year to date, 1.4 billion year to date. These are big products. These are kind of a blockbuster type product. And then they have started launching their new products They've started recently commercializing the products on their own. So products that they commercialize on their own under the Genmab motto. So no royalties. This time you assume all of the risks, but you also don't have to share revenues, etc. And Pinkly and Tivdak, and these are growing pretty fast. Look at the growth rate, right? 48% for this one that is wholly owned by them. And then as far as the royalty, if you look, 19% is bad for me, but for most investors, that's nothing to sneeze at. For most investors, from a 5.5 billion base, that's pretty high. But if you look, I'm particularly excited at looking at over numbers, like 64% for this one year-over-year growth, 70% for this other one year-over-year growth. You can really see the law of large number kicking in for, say, something like Darzalex. But I see no reason, given that the thesis of all of these drugs are antibodies and their expertise of antibodies, I see no reason why these drugs would not grow in the future. I think they're going to grow, and I think their pipeline is really big, where they will have many more drugs that grow this fast. So I think this is a company, 2030 is their vision. They have a long-term growth runway. And we've got enormous growth all over, like I just said, especially on all of the already made products. They've got a lot of growth. Q2 was reported in August. What did they say in Q2? Well, they upped the guidance to 28% revenue growth. That's what they guided in Q2. The question, I've been dealing with stocks that up their guidance on this channel many times in many different sectors. Typically, when they up their guidance once, they increase their guidance multiple times, not just once. And will they increase their guidance again in Q3 and in Q4, right? And so in Q3, will they tell us, oh, we think we're going to do 32%, So it's tough to know, but as far as I'm concerned, plus 28%. This is growth that is excellent. Love it very much. I love that growth. Going back to my initial slide about the cost of this company, how much am I paying for that growth? Next to nothing. It's a 0.17. It is cheaper than a Transmedics, but this is even a company where a conventional stock analyst would objectively start to say, this is objectively getting cheap. I mean, you're getting at a company that is at the edge of innovation, that is trading at 3.6 times forward sales, right? That's what you would say. So that's pretty cheap. Of course, very close to the gross profit. Look at that margin. Understandable, it's mostly royalty, but 97% gross margin. EBITDA margin is also excellent. They blow past the rule of 40. They are at a 62. This is a company which, furthermore, is down 23%, 52-week performance. So the stock has been, cratering. I honestly don't know why, because I see a lot of good things in this stock. Let me go on to that productivity. I'm starting to add a productivity in all of my analyses. The more I grow as an investor, the more I can't stand companies that are bloated, companies that have too much staff, and when I see the next gen of these pharma companies compared to the old pharma companies, the big pharma companies, you may remember me doing this analysis between L'Oreal and Elf, for example, where it was a stark contrast. The contrast is not as stark here, but it's still pretty stark. In essence, the new companies in healthcare, like Genmab, like HIMSS. So HIMSS is a really, really new company. GMAB, as far as healthcare is concerned, is 25 years old company, so it's still fairly new. you can see the new companies are twice as productive per employee as the old companies. So if you look at, say, Genmab, the revenue per employee is 1.02 million per employee. If you look at AstraZeneca, for example, the revenue per employee is 646,000. Pfizer, 626,000 revenue per employee. Pfizer is going to see declining sales next year, right? AstraZeneca is growing up at 8%. That's a little higher than GDP, I suppose. And him scoring, of course, at 50% plus, and they have $1 million of revenue per employee. GMAB has $1,000,008 revenue per employee, growing at 28%. If you adjust for the growth, these are companies that one could argue are nearly 3 times as productive. The productivity is important to me when I invest in stocks. And I'll conclude with another thing, the stock chart. So the performance has been quite well. But of course, it's down over the past few years, and I think they have fallen in sympathy or fallen in association with the sector in one way. One thing that some of you may care about, which to me this is an established enough company that I wouldn't care as much, but if you care about that, the company is still led by one of its co-founder. It's a 25-year-old company, and then they believe their stock is cheap. They have a big share buyback in place, and you can see they've been reducing their number of shares over the past 3 quarters. So they are buying back their stock. They think the stock is cheap. As far as what I'll be doing with this stock, well, I may be buying it. I don't know yet because I'm also looking to sell a few stocks. But I'll let you know on Patreon if I end up buying it or not. And eventually I'll let you know on the channel if I buy it. Because if I buy it, I'll make more videos about it, obviously. For now, I don't own it. But I find particularly compelling. And this video here, this analysis is making me quite compelled. The valuation, of course, as always with this type of stock, is what makes me very compelled. It's a low valuation. So I love that very much. And the mission makes me quite compelled. This is a beautiful mission. So this was not financial advice, not investment advice, just entertainment. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on X, follow me on Patreon, leave a comment, helps with the algorithm. You know what to do. Have a wonderful day.